All right, the icon for today is I can plot, order, and compare fractional numbers with the same numerator or the same denominator. So let's take this first set. All these fractions have the same numerator, right? It's all 1. That means the denominator is the one that's changing. Now, if you have a set of fractions that all have the same numerator, and you want to order these, let's say from greatest to least, then all you have to do is look at the denominator, right? And initially you might look at the fractions and be like, 12 is the greatest number, 2 is the least number. It's already ordered from greatest to least. But these aren't whole numbers, they're fractional numbers. So let's look at a visual here. So let's put a whole down. Okay, that's one whole. Okay, and I'm just gonna visually see the biggest piece. So that's 1/2. I'll try to follow along here, 1/2, right? Then I have 1/3. Then I have 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, 1/8, and 1/12. I'm missing 1/10. 1/10 and then 1/12. Okay, so initially look at the numbers and you think 12 is the largest value number, just the number 12 versus 2. 12 is greater than 2, right? But with fractions, if the numerators are the same, as you can see, the smaller the denominator, the larger the piece. Let me say that one more time. The smaller the denominator, 2 is smaller than 12, the larger the piece. Because it's talking about a whole, so it's 1/2 of the whole, 1/3 of the whole, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, 1/8, 1/10, and 1/12. And something that we have to really get used to with fractions is hearing these fractional parts, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, 1/8, 1/10, and 1/12, and thinking about their sizes like this versus thinking about numbers as they get bigger with whole numbers. So if you have fractions with the same numerator, the larger the fractional denominator, the smaller the piece. So if I wanted to rewrite these from greatest to least, it would be 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, greatest to least, 1/5, 1/6, 1/8, 1/10, and then 1/12. So if the numerators are the same, look at the denominators. The larger the number, the denominator, the smaller the number, the larger the piece. Okay, the smaller the number, the larger the number, the smaller the piece. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. All right. Now let's look at the other way around. So let's say this time we're going to use just a few, just to save a little bit of time. This time we're going to look at halves. We don't have to keep that there, it's okay. All right, so let's say this time we have 1/2 2 halves 3 halves and 4 halves. Okay, again, we're trying to go from the greatest to the least. Okay, we're ordering it from the greatest to least. Now, if the denominators are the same, looking at the numerators, you can tell which one's the greatest to the least just by thinking it as the common way of like the larger the number, the larger the fraction, if the denominators are the same, because they're talking about the same size. So this is 1/2, right? This is 1/2, 1/2. This is 2 halves, 2 halves. This is 1, 2, 3, 3 halves, and this is 4 halves. So 4 halves is the largest value. Then we have 3 halves. Then we have 2 halves. Then we have 1/2. So it's a lot easier to think of it when you have the same denominator of what's greatest and what's the least, because you're just looking at the numerator and seeing what's the largest value for the numerator if you have the same denominators. Okay, so 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves. Just think of it as 1 lemon, 2 lemons, 3 lemons, 4 lemons. What's the greatest? 4 lemons, 4 halves, if the denominators are the same. Okay, the numerators, or sorry, the denominators being different with the numerators being the same, that one's a little bit more unusual to what we're used to with numbers. All right, we're going to keep going and now look at fractional numbers on a number line. Okay, so let's take, we're going to do two different ones. One with the same numerator and one with the same denominator. And we're going to start off with looking at the same denominator. Okay, so this is two wholes, right? So let's draw a number line so you can see that it's 0 here. Then there's one whole here, so let's put 1. And then 2, okay? Because you can see that there's 0, 1 whole, 2 wholes, right? Okay, let's say I need to plot. Let's do, I'll write them off to the side here, or here. Let's say I have to plot 1/4, 5/4, and 7/4. So the same denominator. So whenever you're plotting fractions on a number line, you always have to look at the denominator and look at, and that tells you how many parts are in one whole, not the entire number line, but one whole. So it's 1/4. There's 4 parts in the whole. Just with one whole, I have to divide it up into 4 parts. And then I know each of those parts is equal to 1/4. So 0, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. I know that one whole is also equal to 4/4. Okay, and then I can keep going. So this one whole I have to divide up into 4 parts. And that's something that's tricky when you see number lines and it's not already labeled for you. You automatically think that you're talking about the entire given number line, but you only have to look at the one whole when it comes to the denominator. This is 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, and 8/4, which is also equal to 2 wholes. Okay, so now let's plot. 1/4, here's 1/4. I can just circle these because I have them. 5/4 and 7/4. And they're already lined up from least to greatest, right? So when you're looking at a number line and the denominators are the same, you pretty much just look at the numerators to see which one's the least to the greatest. Okay, let's do that again. But this time, I'm just gonna go ahead and connect this. But this time we're gonna look at fractions with different denominators. We're gonna again make another number line. So we're starting off at 0. Then there's one whole, there's 2 wholes. So 0, 1, and 2. And this time we're going to plot and label and then compare. Let's do 3/2, 3/4, and 3/8. Okay. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different because, remember, we're always labeling the fractions according to the denominator. Okay. So it's according to one whole. So 3/2, 2 parts in my whole. Go ahead and draw a connecting line for this one first. So 2 parts in the whole. This is 1/2. 2 halves are also equal to 1 whole. And then I'm doing another half here. That's 3/2. And 4/2 or 2 wholes, right? Okay, so that's 3/2, 1/2, 2/2, 3/2. That's my first fractional number. The second one is 3/4, and I have to break apart the whole again into 4 pieces now. So that's one whole, right? That's 2 pieces. Now I'm going to do 4 pieces. So I'm just going to do that one more time into halves. Again, the same thing on this side. So it's 4ths here, 4ths here. So that's 1/4, 2/4, also equal to 1/2, 3/4. 4/4, also equal to 2/2, 1 whole, 5/4, 6/4, also equal to 3/2, 7/4, and 8/4, also equal to 4/2 and 2 wholes. Okay, so now I'm going to plot and label 3/4. Where's 3/4 here? And last but not least, I'm going to do 8ths. So remember, 8 is the denominator. That's how many parts I'm going to break apart this one whole into. Not the entire thing, but the one whole. 8. I already have 4ths, so I'm just going to break those into halves of the 4ths, which will make 8. Same thing on this side. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8, 9/8, 10/8, 11/8, 12/8, 13/8, 14 eighths, 15 eighths, and 16 eighths. We made it. Okay. So we just really needed the 3 eighths, but that's okay. 3 eighths right here. Okay. And as you can see, from least to greatest, like we talked about earlier, looking at the denominators, least to greatest, the larger the denominator, the smaller the piece, because the numerators are the same, right? They're all 3. But the larger the denominator, the smaller the piece. So if this one were to be lined up from least to greatest, it would be 3 eighths, 3 fourths, and 3 halves.